All right, there's different sections or categories that has to be covered in the class. So welcome back, and in this session, or a couple of sessions actually, we're going to cover hydrology. Not hydrodynamics, but hydrology, which basically by their terms means the waters that fish live in, the types, and so on. So let's get started. Important restrictions to know, and the most important prohibitions and controls. Fishing without a license or a water permit. Catching fish intentionally during closed season. That means using lures and baits or whatever for a particular fish species, and it can be seen that you are intentionally fishing for that type of species or that type of fish, and the fish are in a closed or spawning season. Or catching a closed season fish species unintentionally, but not releasing it back into the water. I mean, we can't always determine what's going to hit a bait. I've caught pike off of carp bait. But the thing is, if you catch that fish and it's in closed season, you must follow all the requirements and release that fish. Otherwise, it's a no-no. Fishing beyond boundaries specified or specific in the permit. Catching fish with spears, electric rods or prods, iron-pointed instruments, chemicals, dynamite, or poison. Attracting fish by illuminated devices. In Japan, in some places, they'll hang lanterns off the sides of boats to bring the squid and fish up. It's one thing to be using a light at your camp, which may be near the water, but it's totally different if you take that light and take it out to the edge of the water, hang it over the water, or in some fashion that shows an intent to attract the fish using that light source. Trespassing through buildings, yards, gardens, forest cultures, that means anywhere that you're not supposed to be in the woods, tilled fields, industrial plants, and fenced-in areas. Buildings, yards, gardens, that's self-explanatory. Forest cultures, there are a lot of nature-protected areas in Germany. They are marked, it has a shield, it has like an eagle on it. You cannot go off the paths, the designated hiking paths, when going through these areas. If you do, it's considered the same as trespassing, as you can damage uh, any of the flora, some of which may be protected. So you can't just go wandering through the woods willy-nilly in some places. Tilled fields. A tilled field shows an indication to plant or has been planted. This then makes it automatically off limits to anything. If it's an untilled field and there are no crops in it, that's something different. Of course, industrial plants and so on. We had a time where Germany had nuclear facilities where they would, generate nuclear power plants. They didn't generate the nuclear power plants, but they generated power via them. And people would try to get into these areas at the water bleed off because it was really warm to go fishing. And you're just not supposed to do that. And fenced in areas. A fenced in area is any area of property that has a fence or fence like structure that goes from the water line all the way up, blocking that area off. A lot of people, Germany is really small in comparison to the States. Land is at a premium. You cannot climb over, go through, or whatever fenced in areas. Now, a lot of people, because as there are clubs over here hundreds of years old, that they have fishing rights on certain waters. And the people around there know this, and they'll normally build their fencing a meter away from the water line or from the water bank. because they know the fishermen need to come back and forth through there. However, this is not always the case. If you cannot easily walk between the water and that fence line along the bank, then it is a closed or fenced in area. It's that simple. Don't cross it. You're responsible for any damages or alleged damages that you have done, as well as anyone with you. The improper killing of caught fish. There is a prescribed method to kill the fish. If you don't follow it, you're breaking the law. Catching and keeping of undersized fish. Now, Article 17 of the German Animal Protection Act dictates a punishment of up to 2 years in prison and or a fine for whoever kills a vertebrate animal for no valid reason or inflicts considerable suffering or pain. The current court rulings imply that live bait fish, because they've got a vertebra and a skeletal system, do suffer pain and fall under this ruling. It's also sometimes referred to as the mute animal protection law. As such, you cannot fish with any live vertebrate bait fish or otherwise, as it violates this law. Worms, crickets, grasshoppers, no vertebra. Fish with them. Crayfish, stay away from them. There are many protected species here, and you get the wrong ones, you get into trouble. Fish cannot be returned to the water unless they are undersized or caught during their close season. There is no catch and release in Germany. Unless there's those two conditions. There are other varying conditions, but those are the two that you need to know. Fish cannot be returned to the water unless they are undersized or caught during their close season. There is no catch and release in Germany. There is no catch and release in Germany unless under those two conditions above, or if listed on your water fishing permit. Some fish, due to their region or whatever, may be protected under special regulations. If you're not supposed to take out pike perch, or you're not supposed to take out pike, no matter what size, it'll be listed on the water permit. Again, this is not the general rule, and it will be listed on your water permit. In short, fish cannot be returned to the water unless they are undersized or caught during their close season. If they're undersized or caught during close season, you return them. There is no catch and release in Germany unless under those two above conditions. K. Fish caught that are not being returned to the water must be killed immediately. No catch and hold, no stringers, nor live wells are allowed. All caught fish must be put to good use, either as food for humans or as animal fodder. Sometimes I'll chop mine up, put it into the compost, and use it for plant food. Okay, but all caught fish must be put to good use, and it specifically states either as food for humans or as animal fodder. If you get that question on the test, then that is a true statement. Most people compost here, but most people in general do not compost for gardening. The larger majority, they pick up and you separate your trash, paper, plastic, what we call black trash, or non-compostable, or chemical waste, and then compost. And you have different containers for these. So if you're just catching fish and throwing them into your compost bin for it to be picked up with the trash service, then you are wrong. If you're catching them and then just throwing them into the woods or something, you are wrong. Okay, hydrology. You'll notice this little chart here over here on the right, and you'll see this long gradient line. Think of this as a mountain. That's basically, they're showing this as a water gradient or touring from the top of the mountain to the flatlands. All right, that's what that is there for. Don't let it confuse you with anything else. Waters are divided into two main categories, moving and standing. The main difference between the two types is the current. Waters flowing downhill, here, have a water flow rate or current of differing speeds. This depends as it falls along the gradient and the land levels out. Of course, the current slows down. Anything of this category, including slow-moving rivers, streams, things of this sort, these are moving waters. Lakes and ponds have no viable or visible current. Okay, I'll just read it. While lakes and ponds have no viable current visible, bogs and marshlands as well may fall under this category. The strength of a stream's current depends on the gradient or down water flow of the stream. As such, the greater the incline, the stronger the current. Again, remember your little mountain configuration here. High mountains into flatlands. Where was I? As such, the greater the incline, the stronger the current. The gradient of the stream determines the water's flow rates, and as such determines the type of flora and fauna, plants and animals, that live in and around it. The relationship of the length of water banks to the water surface area. The relationship of the length of water banks to the water surface area is more favorable for moving waters than standing waters because the water bank is changing constantly. This is typically due to erosion. Moving waters are also usually richer in oxygen and as such better fish producers. Moving waters. These include brooks, streams, and rivers. Usually start as running springs in mountains or hilly marshlands. The varying regions along the course of such a body of water, from its source to the mouth, will as such vary in speed and depth. Again, top of the mountain, flatlands. These regions, as such, have been named after the prominent fish species which can be found within these regions or zones, which is this chart up here. You will also see, irrelevant to the region, will be the bottom conditions. The region, the average temperature, the region, the oxygen content, and what the dominant species would be found in those areas. High mountain streams may not have vegetation or animal life. May not. Not will not, may not. And melting snow may cause them to rise or fall, swell greatly. High mountain streams at times can have almost dry beds in the summer months. At this time, the fish can usually only be found in the deeper pools of standing water or usually underneath small waterfall areas. So the water is dried up from the ice and the early spring rains, or the water is dried up from the ice and early spring rains. The only thing left is the deep sinkholes where small waterfalls have dug them out due to erosion and or deeper pools. As such, living conditions of fish species can improve considerably further downstream. More consistent water, foliage, everything else. Flatland streams differ from mountain streams basically by their sandy or gravelly bottom structure and a richer vegetation than animal life. You see here, fast water, only the big rocks drop out. As the water slows, we get into gravel, then smaller particles such as sand, then silt, then mud. Fish will also find an abundance of food and shelter in these streams because the water temperature is also higher, and as such there's more vegetation in the water and along its banks. When these moving waters are blocked or regulated by damming or straightening their normal course, fish productiveness declines rapidly. They found this out with the Rhine. Remember, fish that no longer have their natural shelter, that are exposed to floodwaters and other man-made conditions, will become more susceptible to predation and predators, and will often, if able, migrate to more suitable waters. So you put a dam in the stream in your backyard without a permit, that's illegal because you're blocking the waterway. Of course, if there's a flooding, the fish then can get around or over that and move on down, and of course they will not come back to those areas.